this is how we do it.
Right.
This is the process. This is who you talk to. They don't know anyone. And we're all running at 100 miles an hour. And there's like, come on, catch up. From Experiment Nation, I'm Rommil Santiago. And this is CR No. CR No is a series that pulls back the curtain on the conversion rate optimization industry. Listen in as a panel of experienced CRO veterans talk about some of the joys and a lot of the pains of our industry. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of CR No. This episode's topic is what's slowing your CRO program down and how to make it go faster. On today's panel, we have Shiva
Hey, this is Shiva. I'm a program manager for optimization at Gartner.
and we have Kenya.
Hello, I am the Associate Director of Experimentation at Evolytics.
That's a promotion.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
today we have myself, Rommil, and I lead experimentation and personalization over at Loblaw Digital in Canada. All right, this is going to be a very interesting topic, I feel. As people who lead experimentation programs, we always want it to go faster, but they never go as fast as we want. I'd love to hear from Shiva, who came up with this topic, on his view.
Yeah, I mean, one caveat, right, is faster doesn't always mean better, and slower doesn't always mean worse. Because depending on what you're testing, you could be, really taking the time based on like 5 iterations of a test to really nail a design down and QA it and get it going. But you could also be spending a lot of time QAing and getting down to a particular test that you shouldn't be investing all of that time into. So there's a definite balance of quality versus quantity here. Um, but one of the things I've generally seen that slows the program down is kind of just a lot of, fixation on the absolute perfect version and the winning version of a test rather than, you know, to be blunt, going a little bit dirty and quick and testing out concepts and being a little bit more nimble and agile to kind of accelerate the learnings rather than kind of, the pixel perfect best winningest version with all the colors and all the elements fine tuned to where they need to be.
You often hear people saying that they want to be proud of what they ship. So you kind of understand why they want good products to go out. But I was wondering what your thoughts on why is this fixation on perfection when it comes to testing?
Oh, I mean, I could easily say us as optimizers, we literally test to strive into perfection, right? So there's a definite, we see a template and we say, all right, let's do this to make it better. Let's do this to make it better. Let's do this to make it better. But um, I've interacted with a lot of designers who will also have that similar type of mindset, which is, I mean, that's why we experiment, that's why we test. It's in our core to create the best possible version. But sometimes you literally have to physically pull yourself out of this and say, is this core to our hypothesis? Is this core to what we want to learn more about? And can we get this out quickly? Um, Especially if it's starting into a brand new concept. Like, let's say you've just built a brand new, really cool, like e-commerce product page video that you want to start testing into. Instead of thinking like, well, I think the best possible version will be uh, in the middle of the page between this section and this section because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, you can try that, but it might be quicker and dirtier to just literally insert it as like a secondary image to the page and see if you get attention, or maybe insert it at the very top of the page. And maybe it's not the cleanest UI, but you track the attention, you track the clicks, you track and segment the users to see if more people click on it versus not, and go from there. And eh, you know, I think one of the common overlooked things is iterations, where you take a concept, keep it dirty, and then you iterate from there. It's not building a brand new experiment from there. Your iterations are always going to be quicker, theoretically. Um, yeah. So I think those are definitely big reasons why things are slowed down. It's just kind of like an eye for perfection. And it's like, let's get the best version instead of like, let's get the learningest version, if that makes sense.
I like that. I like that you call it the learningest version. No, I think that actually makes sense. We're all about trying to generate learnings, so we should be optimizing for learning and not necessarily pixel perfect versions of things. Kenya, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite areas that I deal with multiple clients. The goal is always to move faster, and Shiva, I agree that sometimes the focus is on the most perfect version of the test, and going in, it's not to test, it's to push out what they've already um, come up with. But there's a lot of like cracks within the process that I've realized slow down programs. One being the lack of validating tests before they go out. And although that can slow things up, there's so many ways of putting in checks and balances that can automate that process for you. Another is the the time to analyze your tests. There's so many companies and products out there that have like those I don't want to call them like a automated test read, but that's really what it is, where it's this template that gives you this information at a faster rate, which comes with you knowing your business. Um, Another area is documentation and understanding of optimization, all the layers that comes with it, experimentation, personalization, machine learning, AI, and knowing how to use those tools. Um, Education and re-education tends to be the areas that slows down programs the most because there's so many test types to use to get to your end goal, and there's a lack of understanding of how to apply them to strategies, and that's oftentimes turn into just long drawn out conversations or PowerPoints that are proving your point as to why you should use this type of test versus another. All of those, kind of go into slowing up a program.
I like that you talked about the education re-education part because that's something that kind of comes up in my world a lot, and from a different angle. At Lala Digital, we're growing rather fast. I think we doubled our headcount in a year or two. So what's happening is it's not necessarily re-educating people. It's training all the new folks that keep coming in, or the replacements for people. And it's kind of like, okay, it's not necessarily you have to resell them on experimentation itself because they've joined and they know well ahead of time that we focus on experimentation, but it's more like, this is how we do it.
Right.
This is the process. This is who you talk to. They don't know anyone. And we're all running at 100 miles an hour. And there's like, come on, catch up.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, to add to what you're saying, Romel, it's,
This is Rommil Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week, we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.
new people coming into a company also have their own particular way that our previous company did, optimization and how they structured it. So to your point, I mean, there's definitely wrong ways to do it, but within a lot of orgs, there's definitely, you know, nuances to making an optimization fit what you need based on your staff, based on the matrix of the org that you have, based on your KPIs, things like that. So it's definitely in the education camp to let them know this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. I'd also say there should be a level of malleability to adjust based on, you know, let's say you have a product manager who was extremely CRO knowledgeable because they did that in a previous life. Maybe you give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt and use them more and leverage them more versus maybe someone who doesn't quite understand CRO, like understands the principles of it, but doesn't really know how to make an optimization program run and hum. Maybe you kind of step in a little bit more and say, all right, well, this is the way that we should be doing it because of these reasons.
I like that you touched on the staffing piece because that's the point that I wanted to bring up. Where for brand new programs, it's at least this is what I keep running into starting a new program at a company. It's like, we believe in it. What do you need? And when you list out the resources that you'd like, it's always, I don't know about that. I don't think you need this many headcounts or this many developers or what have you. And you're in this situation of, well, you got to prove yourself that you could bring in results with only having like 10% of what you'd love to have.
Mhm.
uh, and it's kind of like, it's hard to get faster when you don't have a lot of folks, but you can't get faster unless you prove that you could do good things with the resources that you have. So at least that's what I run into a lot. I was wondering if you run into a lot of resourcing issues, Kenya.
Oh, 100%, 1,000%. It's the saddest story. I feel like, to your point, everyone wants you to, or every company wants you to prove the worth of the experimentation or the CRO program, um, with as little resources as possible, and they want to put most of it in the tool and let it be the self.
Oh yeah,
And I'm like, there's a level of our job that has to be done by a person,
yeah,
and like I find it odd that leadership will always strive for having high expectations for the experimentation programs, but they're not very quick to invest a lot of money into it when the it's really the foundation of how you are figuring out how much money you're going to make. So that teeter totter, it happens across all of our industries. I know that we all run into it, and I don't know. That's an unfortunate predicament to be in. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think people can oftentimes see CRO as a risk. I'm saying CRO, not pro. I'm gonna give you a little crap for that, can you?
I know.
I'm surprised we're all okay with just the term CRO. But let's move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like so think about experimentation to some folks. A lot of folks will think of it as like, hey, this is a potential risk because a test could lose and we'll lose money versus, if we put X amount of dollars into engineering, it's a guaranteed effort because we're putting X amount of dollars to build a thing that will be a concrete thing at the end of it versus an experiment could win or lose, theoretically. But I think that's where a lot of the positioning has to be on our side improved to say it's risk management or mitigation, sorry, risk mitigation to say when you do this thing that you're just investing however many dollars to just build, you don't necessarily know if it's going to work or not. Yeah, you'll have an end result of a thing, but you don't know if it how well it'll do or anything like that until you actually run the experiment. So it's risk mitigation, but I think that's where I keep on going back to like test to learn, not test to win, because if you're paying for insights with your experimentation program, it's effectively the same thing as investing in like a UX research program where you pay X amount of dollars and you get these insights from this research that you've done. So that's where I try and balance the positioning of experimentation is not just, hey, we run experiments to make dollars. It's we run experiments to gain insights and also we win dollars. We get dollars.
Yeah, I love that because there's so many folks out there that think experimentation's all about the dollars and they focus really heavily on win rate. And it's like, why do we even run experiments if we don't make any money out of it? And it's like when you run an experiment and you find out that something will lose, but it's like we just saved $500,000 or $1 million or what have you. That is a huge thing. And even if it's inconclusive, you could get a learning and you could build off it. That's a huge thing. Yeah, I love that you're talking about moving it away from this money focus towards learning focus.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say you don't not attribute revenue to the growth of your program, but a fixation only on revenue doesn't can sometimes hurt the investment into it because people will see it as, well, I have a guaranteed thing versus I have a risky thing, it's like investing in Bitcoin versus I don't know, like a mutual fund. Like I'm not saying that's actually what it is, but the perception could be, oh, I'd rather invest in something that's stable growth rather than swing for the fences and possibly lose to Dogecoin or something like that.
That's how you pronounce it? I thought it was doggy coin, but boy, I feel stupid. Um,
I mean, we're talking about Crow versus CRO, so I could be wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
but it's a little bit of a two-faced thing, and I'm very well aware. Usually, when I try to pitch a program, it's look how much money we're going to win.
Mhm.
So it is definitely on us to be learning forward. Um, yeah, that's actually a great point. So we've talked a lot about things that slow us down in terms of growing a program. Uh, I'd love to start exploring on how to make it go faster. Um, uh, Kenya, I'd love to start with you.
Like that's the holy grail. How do we move faster? I I don't like the idea of moving faster and the just for the sake of moving fast. Uh,
Mm.
Preach.
like I ran 2,000 tests. Yay me! Like
Oh, thank you for saying that.
like or now everybody wants to say I want 2,000 tests a month just like that company. Like for the just for the sake of saying you're doing it in high numbers isn't the goal, and I think that's all of us on this call definitely agree. But
Actually, I will have an asterisk on that. Just to quickly say something, I
oh,
think at the beginning of a program, you have to talk about volume, but you quickly shift away from it. But it's kind of like if you're starting a program and you run zero tests, leadership is going to go, well,
right.
what the heck? But once you get to a certain number, like you feel comfortable with a number, then I 100% shift away. Sorry, I'll let you
Yeah,
continue.
no, you're absolutely right. It is a KPI of our program of the program's health and success. But like for the velocity that I would envision that you really want is the ability to learn fast, actually have tangible learnings. When it comes to analyzing a test, sometimes we get this analysis paralysis, or we're tired of looking at the same um, the same tests from the same year, and we're rerunning them, or everybody's running a test, and the data is polluted because no one's running it on different KPIs. Like that's where you have velocity in numbers, but not in learning, because you're spending a lot of your time in trying to isolate your own test and what you could possibly pull from it. So to me, that holy grail would be if you can figure out a way to launch a high number of tests and really ensure that you are getting the results, clean results from every test, or a high percentage of them. That is like the holy grail of a successful program at a high velocity.
Just to summarize that, what kind of KPI would you define for that measurement, just for folks who are starting up their own programs?
I would say I used to call it, I think it was an accuracy rate.
Huh.
And the accuracy rate was I have two experiences. I launched it on this page that also has five other experiences, and I was able to detect a clear difference between my two experiences, yielding an acceptance of my treatment or of my control.
That's interesting.
I didn't have five tests on one page and all of them were flat. like,
Right, right. On, at Loblaw Digital, where I'm at, the metric that I try to focus us on is time to decision. So it's kind of like this metric that does a few things. It measures the efficiency of a program. So from when we start working to when we get a result, we're always trying to shorten that in every way possible. Is our workflow working? Are we analyzing efficiently? Like obviously that's a macro number. It could be broken down, but then we could start identifying where our roadblocks are. Um, and it kind of includes that notion that you have around getting that learning, that accuracy, because the decision part, we have to get a learning out of it. Shiva, how do you, I don't want to say move faster, but how do you get more efficient?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just every experiment we have, maybe we have like a roadmap to say these are the things we want to learn more about our audience. Can we influence them a particular way? Can we show more branding? Should we show less branding? So we have some like strategies for things that we want to push into and see how our audience will generally react. But as we do these things, it's okay, now that we have this roadmap for what we can do, let's start identifying the designs that we should move towards getting into testing these hypotheses. And as much as we can, I mean, I have a lot of pretty regular meetings with engineering and design teams as a way to mitigate the amount of like back and forth that we would have with them in the test building process and the design process. So let's say we have a design where we want to add the video to a particular part of a product page. I'll be like, all right, well, hey, dev team, how hard is it to add the video? Pretty easy? Cool. All right. Hey, designers, pretty easy to add the video. What does it make sense? Where does it make sense to add it? We're kind of thinking here. And then the designers will give some inputs, and then we'll go back to the dev team and say, if we went something like this route, what would make sense? What's easier to do? What's harder to do? And we use these as inputs to start guiding the decisions to say, well, we believe this is a slightly better experience based on our hypothesis and based in the data, but it will require a little bit more time versus this experience is maybe a little bit less, but we still gain insights and it'll be quicker to test. So you start balancing some of these inputs in a framework type way so you can start thinking about what is the quick things you should test into, but also there may be some value in spending just a little bit more time to get it right. I tend to err more on the side of like, lean and mean and fast rather than, put all the makeup on the design. Because you could do makeup later. You just got to get out the door first. So I don't know, weird analogy, but
So you touched on framework. Many of our listeners use a lot of frameworks. What could that framework look like? What would you include?
yeah, I mean, I'd probably be lying if I said I didn't have a framework to prioritize my frameworks.
Of course, I figured. What kind of factors would you include in a
Yeah, for
framework?
sure. I mean, I think like the biggest things for me is like there should be a layer of what is the data supporting the things that you're trying to do. So if there's a lot of data to say, based on 5 previous test iterations, we believe this is the best thing for us, that's going to rank a lot higher and that should prioritize it higher. If the dev team comes to you and says, this looks great from a design perspective, but this is going to take, 2 sprints worth of work to do this, versus instead, if we just do this, it'll take, we can get it fit into the next sprint, that can prioritize. So kind of dev lift. And I think design lift is another big one too. We're just thinking about what is an MVP to get out and test and learn. But also consider that does that type of design box you into something design wise, or can you quickly iterate from a development perspective too? Like one test we ran a while ago, I won't go super nitty gritty, but effectively we had a landing page and it was more like branded focused, but there was one conversion action. And we saw that this new landing page, tremendous engagement, but conversion rates actually went down. So we said, you know what? Super low dev lift, no design lift. Let's just update the links for um, that conversion action to just go to a different form that we already have live. And that was literally a test that I built in 5 minutes and we relaunched it and it absolutely just crushed it. So so I think those 3 things are very important in just thinking about like what is the overall design lift? Is it quick to iterate from there as well? Dev lift,
Mhm.
and just thinking about like what are you learning from this test as well? Is it going to be extremely helpful? Um, and can you iterate from there as well?
Can you touched on a topic around education and re-education? I was wondering if Kenya, if you had any tactics or strategies to address the education piece. Are there any tips that you have to make that go a little bit quicker?
Yes. Put everything in one location, whether that be, Jira, Confluence, or not really Jira, but Confluence or some type of wiki. Um, and whenever you're building out the educational piece of your program, everything needs to be segmented by who the audience is. So, is this content meant for an engineer? Call it out. Is it meant for analysts? Is it meant for data scientists? Is it meant for marketing? Is it meant for movies? Add those tags and add that information and create a space where people can navigate easily and
I
learning
like that.
is fun. And the transparency of what was done before is easy to navigate through so that they can find inspiration. This living, breathing space um, is what really drives people's curiosity with testing. So the documents themselves, like as long as it's got like some type of format, you can pick whatever works, slap a logo on it, whatever you want to do. But um, making sure you have the right audience in mind will also help with like how you're writing that out. Because if I'm trying to explain factorial testing to you and you've
Yeah.
never tested before in your life, you're not going to be motivated to come back or to test or to do anything with factorial testing. And you're going to be like, well, AB sounds simpler to me. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, that's yeah, that's definitely what I would recommend.
Yeah, Kenya, that's really funny that you say that because as CROers, we obviously literally look at segments to optimize the digital journey, and we don't have a single landing page talking to everyone, right? So you are that's the
Oh,
most meta thing I've ever
I was
heard.
gonna say that.
I love it. It's fantastic.
Had a moment of, oh man, that is the only thing I would add in terms of the education piece. It's something I'm doing now, and I want to hear your thoughts. It's around trying to educate developers actually on tooling
Oh,
and
Great call out.
realizing
yes,
realizing that you have to train and train and train. I'm like, well,
yes.
this is taking up all my time. So what we're doing now, or at least starting to do, is create videos, creating a video walkthrough of the flow of the data, the architecture, how to debug certain things, and having a library of these videos for them to watch because it's a little bit easier than reading a whole bunch of heavy stuff. And then having these regular touch points with, do you have questions for all the new folks? And that's when you field a lot of the questions that they have and perhaps create new videos from it. Um, so I don't know if it's going to work out. I like the idea because it's my own, obviously.
Oh, I
Um,
promise it'll work. We use demos for showing you how to use a sample calculator, showing you how to open up
nice.
the data and target how many users, what type of code snippets do you need, depending on your platform, what type of coding works, like how do you check it? And you're so right that sometimes like people don't want to read. If there's too many words, their eyes go cross and they stop. They like
Yeah,
diagrams, they like videos, and then they like supplemental content to go with it. So that's I promise you it'll work. You're
I look forward to that.
I did actually want to touch on Shiva, your as you were describing like how you prioritize or how you identify the impact of a test. We used to call that the prioritization score, and I promise you, it had the same components, and it's it really like helps people to see everything from a different perspective. They're like, I want to push my test. Well, why? Because it's going to have this impact, and then you put in the how much design it's going to take and how much engineering work, and once you see that number come out, you know, people think differently, and leaders will go in and be like, well, looks like you just got pushed to the bottom. Um, but it also shows how something as quick and um, scrappy as like, you realize there was a quick change to make and you made that change and had a high impact, that still would have been represented in that type of score. So I would also highly recommend if a company does not have a prioritization calculation to use for their testing program, that will help you tremendously.
But
I was just gonna say to build on that, Kenya. I mean, having that framework to show a design and show a test to say it's going to take a long time, it's going to require these resources, it'll be difficult. Just seeing that score in context with everything else can also be very solid evidence. If you present that to a leader and the leader comes in and says, hey, I want to do this. Okay, we've done all the work. It's deprioritized because of these reasons. That's fantastic evidence for you, for that
Yeah,
leader to be like, all right, well, crap. Let's get this crap prioritized. And then they will go to the engineers and say, we give you more resources. And hey, that'll speed up your program. If the leaders look at that and say, I really want to do this test, I will give you more resources for you to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And bada bing, bada boom, you're getting more leadership investment from there too.
exactly.
the the only thing I'd call out there, and I 100% agree that every company should have prioritization frameworks. I don't care what it is, whatever letters you want to use, as long as it works for you. The only thing I'd highlight is when picking one or developing your first one, that may become the most political thing.
Oh, yes.
So be prepared for. It doesn't matter who's using it. You're going to go in these back and forths with, well, who's going to pick that score, and what's a zero, what's a two, or whatever the numbers. And I, no matter how many times I've done this, it becomes like at least a week of back and forth and arguments, and eventually people come along, but I just wanted to manage the expectations of anyone who doesn't have one. That the first go might take a few tweaks and a few
That's
conversations.
why I have the Shiva score column that's weighted at 99%.
I forget about the Shiva score.
Yeah, it's a great way to get things prioritized.
It's a 10.
Yeah,
Oh, this freaking Shiva score is
it's
always killing
it's the
us.
framework. I didn't do it. It was a framework.
All right, so I guess that wraps it up for another episode of CR No. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn and on our website. Until next time, thanks for listening.
See ya.
Thanks for having us.
This is Rommil Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch